Good evening. Thank you to all our wonderful attendees, 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors for joining us for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series today. I have a very wonderful host today out here, Ms. Tara Brown, who's the Associate Director of International Admissions at Calvin University. And she's going to be presenting, as you've seen on the session topic, navigating financial aid in the US, which I know has been, as I mentioned, very popular among all students, parents, and counselors. Students, parents, counselors, as you've seen in our outreach email, the first 30 minutes will be about the session topic for the day, and the second 30 minutes will be about the institution information, Calvin University. Of course, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the program, so kindly feel free to post all your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, and I'm sure Ms. Tara Brown would be more than happy to answer all of your wonderful questions towards the end of the program. Having said that, I'm now going to hand over the stage and the microphone. Good morning, Ms. Tara Brown. Thank you so much for joining us for the Admissions 101 workshop series and to join the 12th grade students, parents, and counselors. We know it's very early in the US, so thank you once again for your kind time. I'm going to hand over the stage and the microphone, and you may begin the presentation. Thank you once again. I wish you all the best.
Thank you all for joining me today. Good evening. I'm sorry to hear that there's so much rain going on right now. I will tell you that today, where I am in the state of Michigan, it's starting to be an absolutely beautiful day. We are really blessed with some beautiful days during the summer here. So I hope that you are doing well this evening, and thank you so much for joining me as we try to navigate this world of financial aid. I know it can be a lot of information, and this can be a confusing topic to kind of shift around, and you are probably inundated with a ton of information coming at you from schools as well. So I hope that you find this session helpful as you start to navigate through that. So again, I am Tara Braun. I oversee international admissions and immigration at Calvin University. And my contact information, you can see in the slide here. My email is tlb32@calvin.edu. That is my direct email. And Calvin's website is www.calvin.edu. Just a little side note, I am also the PDSO, so I oversee the immigration initiatives at Calvin University. I do hold an MS in education. I am a doctoral candidate in higher education as well. So this is something that I greatly enjoy doing, helping families through this process of admissions and the whole world of how do I come to study in the United States. So thank you again for joining me. So I do just want to back up a little bit before we even jump to the topic of financial aid and talk about the first steps on your path to getting a financial aid package. So obviously you have to apply at a school, but how do you really determine what school is best for your family and for your student? So I just wanted to highlight a few things that you should be considering as you are looking and starting to look at education in the United States. So some of these you probably have already been discussing within your family, but I just felt as though it would be good to just kind of recap them. So some of the things that you may be looking at are the quality of education, and by that I mean how large the class sizes are, what kind of credentials do the faculty have, are there research options available to your student, are there internship opportunities, are there going to be research opportunities at the school, what kind of involvement will your student have at the school that will help them become a global citizen and also find success in their academic career and outside of that. So some of the other things that I just kind of highlighted are academic options. So when you look at a school's website, you will see that there may be an item called a course catalog. Each program should have its own website on the school site as well. So you could dive into that. Most of the time you will see schools listing the academic program information. They could list perhaps some of the classes that may be involved, but they should also highlight the alumni and where they currently are. You may also see some other statistics there on their site in regards to where students have been placed after school, and perhaps how much they are currently making and what they are doing with their degree. So that's all really helpful information as you take a look at a school's academic options. Another thing that you may be considering is going to be the location. So as you are aware, the United States is very vast, and it differs from the west to the east and from the north to the south as well. So you really do need to take a look at where that school is located and if that location may be a good fit as well. So cost, I'm sure you all have talked about this. The cost, I'm sure, is a factor for many families. And also on the flip side of that, the financial aid that may be available against that cost. I do just want to state at this time that I always look at education as an investment in the future rather than just a simple cost. So please keep that in mind too as you are looking at schools. So I kind of already highlighted the internship opportunities that may be available to your student. And if that school has a lot of variety on them, are the faculty connected well with industry within their area and outside of that? So I'm just going to mention really quickly that the school that I am with is very connected globally. So when students study there and they're looking at internships, we have a lot of connections for them, and the faculty are very connected. So that should be something that you should be digging into. How connected are those faculty, and what kind of relationship will your student have with them to be able to network outside of the school? So not only the location within the United States, but what city are they in? That's really important, I feel, so that not only the school, but the city has to be a good fit as well. And the ultimate outcome, of course, is to create these great global citizens that are very active around the world in initiatives. So I just wanted to just recap those. I'm sure this is all an area that you are very familiar with or just getting into at this point. So I thought it was helpful to just kind of back up and let's talk about how to choose a school in addition to the steps of financial aid. So let's talk specifically about financial aid now. So as I just reviewed, identifying a school process is very important. You first need to complete the application for the school. Now this application, most schools will be accepting the common application or will have their own application as well, found on their website, typically under an area that just says apply. So it's pretty easy to find. But you first do need to complete the application. Be mindful of the required documents that you need to submit. This is extremely important because some of those documents may be tied into the financial aid process. So I'll talk more into that a little bit. But again, make sure that you are very aware of what documents you're going to require to complete the application. Another thing that you need to be mindful about are the timelines for application. Now, I'm not just talking about the timeline for the application, but you need to take a look at the whole timeline. So there will be timelines for the application, but then timelines for financial aid. The key here is that you need to apply early enough to be considered for the some of the financial aid packages. So I'll expand on that in a little bit here. Also look to see if your school has application fees. Many schools will offer to waive that application fee by a certain time. Okay, so again, that goes back to the timeline. That's one of the things you should be looking at. How long do I have to apply for free? And then if I apply after that window, how much will that be? I'm just going to give you a little hint here. My school has an application waiver fee after a certain timeline. So I have possession of that code. So I'm the one to be asking for that. But I would definitely not be afraid if you are past that application for free stage. I would go ahead and ask a school, do you have a fee waiver code so that I can apply for free? Many schools are willing to do that, but please don't be afraid to ask that question. It's a common one. After you have been admitted and gone through all of that process, you will be notified of your admission. And that could be either in the form of an admission email or a letter. Many of our schools are automated now. And when an admission decision is given, an email is sent out to a student, simply just stating that there's been an adjustment or a notification on their application. It usually comes with a link, and if you click the link, the student will be able to see the decision that has been made on their application. This is pretty common now in the States, and so that's typically the method that students will find out their admission. It will be followed with a formal admission letter, probably in the form of an email. Kelvin's still mailing out admission letters in addition to an email, because we really like to have the students to have that piece of paper. So again, that may vary from school to school, but that's generally how students are finding out about their admission. Now, once you've been admitted, the next step is the financial aid process, okay? So again, I'm going to go back to something I said in the previous slide in regards to required documents. Some of the documents that you submit at the time of admission may be used for financial aid purposes. I also want to reiterate the fact of the deadlines. So as I mentioned before, some schools may have a deadline to apply by January 1, and then sometimes some type of financial aid may be required that you apply for it by maybe February 1. So you really do need to time this out for you to be considered for the most optimal amount of aid. You should be planning to apply in enough time to be admitted to apply for additional aid packages. So I'll get into the type of aids next, and we'll talk a little bit deeper about that. Is there a separate application for your aid package? And you need to be looking at if the school is including that application for aid as part of their admission process, or after they're admitted, is there a separate application for aid? Typically, you will see that this application for aid or your request for an aid package will be asked for at the time of admission, or at the time that you apply. I'm sorry, at the time that you apply. Some schools may have a separate application for you to complete after you've been admitted. Now, typically what you will see with this is that the application for the request for aid will be collected during the application process. If your student is interested in applying for additional aid that may be above the merit-based, so we're talking a sponsored or donor-funded scholarship now. If your student is interested in applying for one of those, there may be a separate application depending on the scholarship that you are applying for. So I'll dive into that in a little bit. Processing for a financial aid package may take up to 2 weeks. So this is nothing that is immediately awarded typically. Sometimes schools look at this on a very individual situation and consider the family financial situation too. So that all takes some time because it's really a personal process, and we usually estimate that it could take up to 2 weeks. So you just need to kind of be patient after that time of admission and leave a couple of weeks. If you haven't heard back from a school in a couple of weeks, certainly reach back out to them and inquire about your aid package, because it probably should be processed by then. So the donor or sponsored scholarships that you can apply for in addition to merit-based scholarships, they typically have a release date. So in other words, If you apply for one of them, you may not hear back at a period of 2 weeks, because the organization may, who's making the determination on who the awardees are, may take a little bit longer to process that. So please be aware of that as well. Financial aid packages are usually notified by email. That's the typical response. You should have a formal letter of some type, or something that looks like a formal letter, offer attached to that email. That's also typically how that occurs. I don't think that you will actually see a paper one. Things are typically done by email now for financial aid. So please be mindful of that. If you are a parent that wants to be notified of that, I would certainly let the school know to try to add you onto that communication of financial aid. Most schools are very good at including the parents, but if that's something that you want to be included in I would definitely ask the school to include you in that notification. Sometimes it will only go to the student. So that means that your student has to be sharing these emails with you. So let's recap some of the types of aid that you may be eligible for. Of course, merit-based scholarships are going to be based on academic merit. So the GPA, once it's converted into the US system, will be considered, and test scores may be used for aid packages too. Now there's this shift happening in the United States right now of schools going test optional. Be mindful of this as you apply, because you'll be given the opportunity to either submit your test scores or don't. Personally, if you were to ask me my opinion, I would suggest, if you have the test scores, submit them, because I feel like it will help you better with the merit-based scholarships. It will definitely help the schools determine what merit-based scholarship you should receive. But just be mindful of that as you are applying and you're seeing some of the schools go test optional. You're going to want to see how they're going to use the test scores, and if it would be to your advantage on the scholarship end to actually submit them if you have them. So the next type of aid that I want to talk about is the intentional scholarships, or need-based aid. So some schools will have an offer of, they have set aside funds, they've devoted funds to making sure that they have grant money that international students can apply for, because they recognize that international students would not be able to come to the US and necessarily obtain a loan very easily. So some schools have made a commitment to creating a pathway of students and families being able to apply for additional grant-based aid. This could be called a few different ways. It could be called maybe international grant, institutional grant, need-based aid. This is all additional funds that you may be able to apply for that is based upon your family financial situation. So this goes back to the conversation of what documents do you need to apply for. If you see that when you apply, a school is asking you for financial statements, so bank statements and income statements, it's possible that they have an institutional grant that they may be willing to consider you for, and that would mean that you should also see an application for that need-based aid with the application process. Now, those financial documents, if you're asked to submit those when you apply, could also be getting used for immigration. So keep that in mind too, for immigration review and approval of your I-20 document to go obtain your visa. So again, look into a school to see if they have these intentional scholarships, institutional grant money, international grants. These are all verbiage that may be used on a website if a school has them. So another type of aid that you may be able to apply for are those donor-funded or sponsor-funded scholarships. These are scholarships that have been established by a family or a donor that have clear guidelines from the sponsor or the donor that is stating where the money should go. So these may be very academic based. They could be interest based, they could be country based. So in other words, there may be a mechanical engineering donor-funded scholarship that's been established only for people from India that intend to go back to India and work in mechanical engineering. They could be that specific. There are so many of these scholarships at schools. It can be very overwhelming to ask for a list of all of them because you will not have the time to sift through all of them. So schools typically have a method that when a student goes in to apply for one of these, they will see the list of scholarships that match them. And based on the information that they have used when they applied, the system matches them up with certain donor-funded scholarships that will be eligible for them. So you don't need to worry about the larger list and which one you need to be applying for. The system should be able to match you up and offer you an opportunity to apply for those. Now you have to be mindful of the timeline again. I'm just going to go back to the timeline. There is usually a very hard deadline for these types of scholarships. It's typically February 1, okay? But you need to really look for when you would have to apply for those donor-funded scholarships. Sometimes those scholarships can be what's called stacked on top of your merit-based scholarships, and sometimes they are included as a whole in your financial aid package. So that's another word that you should be mindful of, is the word stacked. Can you add multiple scholarships on top of one another to get a larger total, or will it still be part of your total financial aid package? So I already went over the institutional grant money, which is another form of the intentional scholarships or need-based aid. Sometimes schools will also have a specific international student scholarship that you could look for that students would automatically get. They wouldn't have to apply for it at all. And it would just be, again, money that the school has set aside to grant to international students. I want to back up a little bit. Those merit-based scholarships are another automatic award that students do not need to apply for. They are automatically eligible for them with admission. Another source that you could look at for scholarships would be outside scholarships. So outside of the school, what's available within the US as a resource. Most of the time on the school website, you will see links to other sources that you could look at for additional scholarship money. But I just want to supply a few that are really helpful for you to look through. And that would be Education USA has a lot of resources for international students to look at for financial aid. And then also the site Study in the States. So if you've been working with Education USA, you're already familiar with the site Study in the States. But Study in the States has a great section just on financial aid and links to additional sites that you could look at for additional funding as well. So I wanted to supply to you some questions, and I've been doing that through the slideshow, but I just thought I would lay this out on a separate slide. Just what questions you should be asking, either of yourself or of the school, or as you look at schools, what should you keep in mind? So something you should definitely look at is, what is the average aid package that they award to international students? This would tell you, before you even apply, how much your final cost may be. So if you take a look at the tuition, most scholarships will go against the cost of tuition. However, some schools may have some scholarships that would go against housing. Now, we in this higher ed world in the US here typically call those like fully funded. You may hear a generic term called full ride. We typically tend to stay away from that verbiage, but maybe a complete package. Again, that will really vary from school to school. There are not many schools, unless you start getting into the avenue of sports or something specific like that, that would have a housing scholarship, but that would be another scholarship that you may want to be mindful of, is do they have a housing scholarship? It's not that common, but it is something that you could be taking a look at. It's something you're probably going to run across, is that wording of tuition bearing scholarship, or is it housing? Is it related to additional expenses outside of tuition? So again, what's the average aid package? Does the school have any international student specific scholarships that you could apply for? And in a moment, when I review information about my own school, I will go back to some of these topics that we've talked about and point a few things out to you. Does the school have international student grants? So again, money based upon your family financial situation. Can they award those? What documents do I need to show? What's my timeline? Again, I can't stress that enough. There are so many families that miss additional opportunities of funding because they weren't aware of what the timeline was that they needed to apply for them. And you can't just look at the timeline for aid. You have to be able to have been admitted. You have to have an admitted status to apply for that aid. So now you have to back that process up in enough time for you to apply and be admitted. So please just be mindful of that. I don't like it when a family misses an opportunity to get additional funds, and I'm sure that you would appreciate the additional funds as well. How much will my family be expected to contribute? So this is also kind of tied back to an immigration question, but it's something that I think that you should keep in mind when you're looking at schools. How much support does that school have for you, and what does your bottom line look like with that? What are the requirements to keep the merit-based aid for all 4 years? So that's a great question. On the school that you're considering, on their financial aid website, they should have a section that states the student must maintain a GPA of this much in order to keep that merit-based scholarship that they obtained. This is also going to be on what I was referring to as the donor or sponsor funded scholarships too. Is there an appeal process for increased aid? Some schools don't allow that. Once they've made their aid package, it's done. In some schools, there may be a door that's open for you to have an appeal process and be reanalyzed for your aid package. So that's just something else in regards to what I was talking about with the application fee. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You really don't know where the school may be able to go or how they may be able to assist you further. I get very sad when a student perhaps bows out of an offer of admission, and I kind of inquire why, and then I find out it's something that we really could have helped them through, but perhaps it's too late at the time. So don't be afraid to ask questions, look for timelines, be very aware of what the average aid package is at the school. Right, so I hope that you have found this session helpful. I will just kind of go back to my first slide here and provide my contact information. Ooh. I didn't go there. I will back up real quick, sorry. I would be more than happy to answer any specific questions that you may have in regards to financial aid in the United States, or if you had any specific questions about the information that I went over that we don't address today in the questions and answers section. But again, some really good resources that I just want to recap again would be definitely the school website. Reach out to the admissions counselor, ask those specific questions about financial aid packages, and go back to the questions that I just kind of posed to you as well. Education USA, absolutely wonderful resource, and Study in the States is tied with Education USA as well. If you have not already started using the services of Education USA, I highly suggest that you do. Not only do they offer assistance with testing, assistance on how to choose a school, how to choose an academic major, financial aid assistance in regards to processing it and obtaining information about that. But they also offer you assistance with the immigration process in regards to prepping you for the visa appointment questions and just doing maybe perhaps mock interviews for that. So it's such a helpful resource to your student. If you haven't already started to work with them, I highly suggest that you do. Okay, I am going to stop sharing my screen real quickly and make a transition to just talk about Calvin. And this will be a good opportunity for me to be able to show you how you can put some of this into practice. So let me adjust my screen here quickly. And so sorry for the clunkiness of this. But I hope that you all can see the screen here with the QR code. That is what you should see here. So I do work for Calvin University, and we are a private liberal arts university. So we do have a little bit more flexibility than a state university does with our aid packages. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more. This is a QR code if you wish to have more information in regards to Calvin. I've supplied our website, and you could just go ahead and scan this QR code and it will take you to an additional form to complete for further information. So Calvin University, I just wanted to briefly recap who my staff is. So this is my staff. I am on the left-hand side. I have Sam Gomez, Brent Wilkinson, who works with our immigration coordinator, and Josiah Enos. Josiah actually works with students from India. I work with Josiah on the territory of India as well. That's who's in my office. Grand Rapids, Michigan is where Calvin University is located. So on this map, you can see that we are in the Midwest of the US, and we are in the second largest city in the state of Michigan as well. We're about 2.5 hours away from Chicago, 2.5 hours away from Detroit, both of them having large international airports, as you may or may not be aware of. Grand Rapids is a great city. As I stated, we are the second largest city in the state of Michigan. We're number one in the city in the nation for job growth. Grand Rapids is a very booming city right now. Number 12 best city to live in the country. We have a lot to offer students in regards to internship opportunities. Some of the industry that is available at Calvin, some of the companies are Amway, Steelcase, Spectrum Health. All of these businesses are located in the city of Grand Rapids. So we have about 1 million people within the city location, and it's big enough to explore and small enough to call home. And there's so much going on within the city. It's very safe, very welcoming, very diverse. So what about Calvin? So let's talk about the specifics of Calvin. We are a campus of about 3,732 students. 12% of our student body is international. So it gives a very diverse perspective just on campus, but also within the classroom with a lot of different types of discussions from all walk of life occurring in the classroom. We represent 65 countries as well. So the scores that you see on the presentation right now are not the scores that are required for admission. These are the average scores of the incoming class of fall 2019. So the slide hasn't been updated yet with the fall 2020, but we're still working on them too. But the average GPA was 3.7 with an ACT score of 26 and an SAT score of 12. So we have at Calvin 100+ academic options available to students. Now that may seem a little overwhelming, and that's not all degrees bearing an all 100. But we are a liberal arts institution, so we truly believe in cross-cultural engagement. And our academic majors and programs are designed to pair and mesh very well together. So it's not uncommon for a student at Calvin to have a major or two, or a major with a minor or two. It's very common and it's very doable just because the classes mesh so well together. We do accept AP and IB classes. Some of our programs that are the most popular with international students are all of our engineering tracks, nursing, education, psychology, business. Those are some of our top majors that we have coming through our international students. We do have graduate degrees as well through a few different tracks. Now, research. Calvin has about 175 plus students engaged in faculty research each year. Now, if you were to look at the academic programs pages on our website, you will see little stories of what the research projects are that the students have been involved in. And it's very impressive. It's all over the world. It is not just within our state or within our city. They have made a huge footprint all over the world in these research projects. Now, even though we are not a research-based school, our faculty are very involved in research, and they involve the students in this opportunity. And so it's not uncommon to have a student involved in a research possibility. We do offer one-on-one mentoring and employment partnership program. We have a wonderful office that works with students on internship placement and then placement in their future career as well outside of Calvin. If you were to ask the current students what their favorite thing about Calvin would be, it would be probably here the faculty. And that is because the faculty are so involved with the students' academic career, but then get to know them personally as well, which is very important for a student because that means future networking possibilities as well for them as a professional. So 90% of the faculty at Calvin hold the highest degree in their field. We do have a 13-to-1 faculty to student ratio. That's within the academic major. So that means that the faculty are working with only 12 other students besides your student at the same time within their academic major. The class sizes are about 20 to 24 students. So that's a smaller class size too. And that's typical with your private or smaller schools, is that the class sizes are going to be smaller. That means that your student gets a lot of individualized attention, not only within the classroom, but within their academic major. The faculty help the students choose their classes. Every single semester they're required to go meet with them before they go off and schedule their classes for the next semester. This is to make sure that the students, if they have any questions, that they're being addressed, but that they stay on track very well as well. And we do have 246 full-time faculty, so we do not have adjunct faculty teaching a majority of the classes at all. So not only do we create opportunities for students within the US, but we also are very devoted and committed to growing internationally. We do have 12% student body is international, but we also revel in the fact that we send a lot of students out to study abroad, and we have many international students that choose to do this as well. Calvin has been awarded the Paul Simon Award in the last few years, and that's quite an honor, and that is given out to schools who make a commitment to internationalization and on their campuses. So we have 40 plus study abroad programs that are offered in 11 semester options, and we do have travel scholarships that travel with the students too. 80 plus student organizations. This is one of my favorite photos, you guys. It really shows the enthusiasm at a basketball game that our campus has. So the students are very excited about this basketball game right now. We have 80 student organizations, 100 plus concerts and films. We have a conference center on campus. So that means that we have a lot of outside organizations coming on campus that our students can get involved in and help plan or be an active participant in. We are NCAA Division III athletics. So if your student is looking at athletics, I will explain a little bit about financial aid right there. NCAA Division III schools are not allowed to give athletic scholarships. Athletic scholarships will start in Division II of NCAA, but even at Division II, there are not a lot of larger scholarships that are being offered to athletes. In order to get the high scholarship amount for your athlete, you would have to be looking at a Division I school. So Calvin again is Division III. But we do offer a lot of other activities within our halls. We have 7 living dorms, and they are divided up between men and women on each wing. And they're so active. There's always something happening on campus. It's hard for the incoming students to try to decide what they should become involved in. So let's talk about financial aid. So this is great. I'm going to explain how the financial aid works at Calvin, and please keep in mind some of the points that I had pointed out in my previous presentation in regards to navigating financial aid. Actually, this slide is incorrect. 100% of our international students receive scholarships and grants of some type. Right away, Calvin has made a commitment to giving any international student an automatic $4,000 scholarship. So this goes back to what I was referring to earlier, where the institution has made a commitment to assist international families. So this is one way that Calvin has done this. We have a $4,000 Mosaic scholarship, it's called, automatically awarded to any student who has been admitted and is international. We also have merit-based scholarships ranging from $10,000 to $20,000. These are also automatically awarded at the time of admission based upon the academic test scores and GPAs that is submitted with the application. So that is also automatic. So congratulations to all of you. You already have a $4,000 scholarship to come to Calvin University. We also have donor-funded scholarships that can be applied for. Now that application deadline is February 1. But you have to have been admitted in order to apply for them. So what I always tell families is if you see a deadline of February 1 for those donor-funded scholarships, that means that you should have applied by the middle of December or by the end of December. Please keep in mind that most US institutions are closed over the Christmas holidays for a week and a half or 2 weeks. So you want to apply early enough to hopefully get admitted before they depart campus for that break. If not, it may be cutting it really close to that February 1 deadline. So again, please make sure you're looking at the timelines for these and that you apply at an appropriate time. We do offer 1,500 on-campus jobs as well. This is another form of not per se financial aid, but a form of funding that your student can obtain on campuses. That's a large amount of jobs that we have committed to students, and international students are the priority when it comes to those jobs because we recognize that they can only work on our campuses and not outside of campus without applying for a CPT experience. So these are the types of things that you should be looking at, is how does a school break this financial aid down? So the average aid package at Calvin for fall 2021 is around $24,000 is typically what we have. We have institutional grant money that we have set aside for students to be able to apply for. That application is included in the application process. So you do have to submit a bank statement, an income statement, and the request for aid is part of your application process and checklist as you are applying. Now we use those financial documents for immigration as well, but it is used to review the family financial situation so that we can award additional grant money to the family. So Calvin has definitely made a commitment to our international students and families. So the date that you can apply for free, again, here's this wording, is January 1 at Calvin. If you have, I do have a code that I could supply after that time, so please reach out to me. But it is in your best interest to try to reach that deadline, because the donor-funded scholarships are due by February 1. So again, that's that timeline. You really need to be careful of that. Deposits are due June 1. So I just wanted to share that QR code again with the website of calvin.edu. I am going to just leave that up there for now. Actually may try to transition before I get to the questions. I would like to try to put my contact information back up. With this slide here, you see my email address right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that up as I attempt to answer some of these questions that are in the Q&A. So when it comes to financial aid, do you refer to scholarships or need-based assistance? Okay, so financial aid package as an overall could consist of these merit-based scholarships, this donor-funded scholarship, that institutional scholarship, in the case of Calvin, that Mosaic scholarship that was $4,000. And it will be any grant money that if the institution offers that, they would be willing to commit to you. All of that makes up what is called your financial aid package. Okay, so when you're looking at financial aid, you should be looking at the entire package, not just one segment of it. What's the total on that? What does it come to? What is the different terminology when it comes to scholarships and financial aid? Right, so some of the terminology would be, as I just mentioned, your financial aid package would be the total of everything that consists of that package. That would be merit-based scholarships, perhaps any institutional specific scholarship that has been set aside for international students. It could be grant money that the school has given to you, and it could also be donor-funded scholarships. That's the language that may fluctuate from school to school, is donor-funded. Some schools may call it sponsor-funded, some schools may call it additional scholarships, outside scholarships. So this is the terminology. If you look at a school's financial aid page, you will begin to see how they refer to all of those. But usually the ones that you will see is the merit-based, donor-funded, and then additional grant money that they may be willing to and able to assist you with. So would most U.S. universities require test scores for scholarships? This is something you really need to be mindful of as you are seeing more and more schools go to the test optional. You need to read when you are applying if they will be, if you decide to not submit your test scores, will that hinder you in the scholarship process? Okay, and they'll still be able to award you something, but would it be of further assistance if you were to submit the scores? And again, I'm just going to give you some advice that if you have an opportunity, if you have the test scores, by all means submit them, okay? And I feel that would just make your case stronger with the financial aid, but each school will have text about this on their application. So please make sure that you're reading through the application and what each school has decided to do. Each one is probably going to be different in how they're handling the test optional scenario. Does having high scholarships impact the chances of getting a US visa, as it may show that students are more dependent on scholarship rather than self-funding? So I'm not USCIS on this, and so I'm a little hesitant to dive too deeply into this, but I can tell you that Calvin has given very high scholarships amounts, and we have a very low percentage of our students that do not get a visa. Usually if they do not get awarded a visa, it usually has something to do with the bank statements or the income statements that they brought with them to their appointment, and they weren't the accurate information that they should have brought. So that's another reason to work with Education USA is that they will make sure that you know what you should be bringing to your appointment. So does it have an impact? No, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But what you need to remember is that your family needs to show that they have the difference or the deficit between the financial aid package and what the final cost is going to be. Like that's the big thing. You should be taking to your appointment proof of your admission letter, and not in an electronic format. If you can print that email off, it's better. Proof of your scholarship package. So all these emails that are getting sent, you should save them. You should print them off and take them with you to the visa appointment, so that the counselor can put all of that information together. What is need blind aid, and how does it impact our scholarship review process? That's a great question, and that's a term that I did not use through this entire presentation. So what is need blind aid? So this is going to be aid that you not necessarily need to show financial proof for. So when I go back to our institutional grant money, need blind, so this is going to be your merit-based scholarships and your automatic scholarships, such as the Mosaic Scholarship that Kelvin gives out automatically. Those are going to be your need blind. The need-based aid that you're looking at would be these institutional grants that would be given out based upon your family financial situation. Great question here. What is Education USA and how can we meet them? So please look them up through Study in the States. That will connect you with Education USA, or simply look up Education USA and then in your location. They have wonderful resources. Again, I cannot speak enough about the wonder of Education USA and how helpful they can be to your family and your student in the entire process. Would housing residency be equivalent to a housing scholarship? So I'm not quite sure where the housing residency text is coming from, but in regards to a housing scholarship, I believe that it would. Residencies are usually typically used with like a graduate degree. Sometimes residency scholarships will include some type of housing, but again, this is really, really dependent on the school that you are looking at. If you are referring to some type of graduate work, those are really going to vary on what type of funding they would provide to you for a residency. Typically with undergraduate degrees, you do not see residency scholarships coming out. So the verbiage that you would be looking for there would be a housing scholarship, or scholarships that would go against your housing fee. That would be even better. If I feel as though the university is a good fit, but not offering any international student scholarships or aid, would they be open again in the future? If the university I feel is a good fit. I think the question that you're asking is if I thought perhaps they would be open to giving you some type of scholarship. If you do not see that an institution has clearly stated on their website that they have devoted money or have some type of international specific scholarship or international grant, they probably do not have one. I would actually ask the admission counselor that you're working with and just ask them if they have anything specific for international students. Would the GPA and test scores you mentioned be the minimum requirements for gaining an admission? So the GPA and the test scores that I just showed to you in regards to Calvin is not what's required for admission. If you go under the application process for schools, you will see what their qualifications are to be admitted. The scores that I showed you was the average of our incoming class. That's just to show you the academic caliber of the student that we have coming to Calvin. Would the faculty offer learning and networking support outside of class time? I can speak into Calvin for this one. but not other schools, okay? With the faculty, yes, our faculty are 110% devoted to our students, and they are so diligent about supporting students outside of the classroom, but then also offering them networking and learning opportunities outside. If Kelvin has so many programs outside of the classroom that students can get involved in. This is part of that greater discussion of how many things students can become involved in when they arrive on campus. It can be a little overwhelming in their first semester. But the faculty are very good at also helping them determine, and we have programs and offices at helping them determine how to use their time wisely. But yes, very active involvement from the faculty at Kelvin. So what are the minimum requirements for the scholarship process at Kelvin? On our website and on any school's website with the merit-based scholarships, you will find the breakdown of what those different levels are, what GPA you have to be at, and possibly at what test score, if you've submitted them, you should be at for those. So that's all a range. There are about 4 or 5 scholarships involved in that range of 10 to 20 that I mentioned earlier. That's typical at most schools, but you would need to look at the school's website to get the actual breakdown of what those levels are. Yeah, can you please discuss more about your international students, what they pursue in college and what they go on to do after college? Great question. I love this question. I love following our students and seeing what they end up doing, which is typically amazing things once they have graduated. So we do have some students that are still in the States and have established great positions here in the States. We have many that have returned back home and are doing amazing things. They've started up their own business, or they've gotten highly involved in wonderful industry and well-known industry. And that's usually because the faculty have made a connection for them too. So I'll go right back to the faculty involvement on that one. We have, this is also a hard question for me to answer because we have so many of them. We have highlighted many of our students found within the academic program that you are interested in on our website. So if you go to the website, you will see some of our highlights of what the alumni are currently doing, what degree they had, and how they achieved their goals. Can you discuss on-campus housing and meal dining options and plans for international students? So I also want to define as well, at Kelvin, because we are a private school, we are able to dictate where our tuition is going to be established, okay? We do not charge extra for international students. At some other schools, you may see that that school is charging international students a different tuition rate than domestic students or students that live in the United States. At Kelvin, we do not. Everybody gets charged the same, okay? So the question of campus living, housing, and meal dining options, we have a flexible dining option. If you live in the halls, you will be required to purchase some type of dining hall option. But you can do that in many different levels. You can buy them the highest level and make sure every meal is eaten there. I don't suggest that. I suggest that you get out and explore some of the area and just not only eat on the campus. So there's many different levels that you can purchase, typically at the schools, that will give you the opportunity to not only explore the surrounding area, but also be safe and be able to eat in many different locations on campus. There's also the option where you can just put in a certain amount, like $500 on a card or something. And so they have $500 for the semester to use wherever they would like on campus. So at Kelvin, we're very flexible in regards to that, and most schools are, and you will see many different options available for the dining halls. Our residence halls actually have common shared living spaces. So they have a washer, dryer, and they have a kitchen that's available to them. It's not uncommon that the whole floor will come together at one point, cook a meal together. Probably not this fall, okay? But they will have access to a kitchen while they are on the campus of Kelvin. Right, so Kelvin University is about 2.5 hours from Chicago. And if you're interested in visiting, Our campus, we actually do have a visit program. If you go to visit on our website, you will see all kind of options on how you can come and do a tour. Gosh, let me know if you are planning on doing that. I would love to meet you while you are on campus. We are just located in a beautiful area of Michigan, and we are about 45 minutes away from the shoreline of Michigan. And if you've never seen what Lake Michigan looks like, pull up a picture of it because it's like an ocean. You can surf on that things on certain days. So it's absolutely beautiful. We would love to have you visit. Discussing the application and documentation requirements for fall 2020 admission. Certainly. So when you apply and you use the Calvin application or the common application, you will be given a checklist. And this goes back to some of the first steps slide that I had in the required documents for admission. So as you apply to Calvin, some of the items that would be required would be obviously your application, your high school transcript, any test scores that you may have, you should be submitting if you have them. And then you have an application for an aid package, so financial aid. And then you would have a bank statement, an income statement. Perhaps if you've taken an English test, you should also submit that. So these are all items that will self-populate on a checklist that you and your student can continue to refer back to make sure it's all been submitted. So those are some of the documentation requirements for admission at Calvin. And again, we do have a free application until January 1. If you feel as though you cannot make that, please contact me personally and I will give you a code that will waive that fee. So here's what I'd like you to walk away with today. I hope that you found this presentation helpful, but I hope that it has created questions in your mind and some resources of things that you should be asking. But the thing that I hope that you walk away with is that don't be afraid to ask those questions. Like earlier, the one in regards to, do you have specific international scholarships? You should definitely be asking that question if you don't actively see it on their website. Please be asking those questions. We are more than happy to assist you through this process. Please get connected with Education USA or Study in the States. They're such a wonderful resource. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. I realize we're a little over time. I apologize. We've had some great questions today, though. I feel like I could spend maybe another hour with all of you because I would really love to assist you through this process. But my contact information can be found on that site. Please reach out to me for any further assistance that I may be able to provide. Thank you again.
Absolutely, Tara. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. We still have a few minutes, and that's fine. I think there are about 2 or 3 questions that were posted as you were speaking. So be absolutely flexible if you'd like to answer these 2 or 3 questions. And
Sure.
then I can give you the conclusions. Thank you.
Sure. The on-campus part-time work opportunities for international students. Great question. Again, if you were to compare, I'm not here to push Calvin, but if you were to compare the number of jobs that Calvin has committed, almost half of our student population is given an opportunity to work part-time on campus. I think that's something, as you're looking at the cost of school, that you do need to look at. Is there an opportunity to earn money if your family would need to do so? So at Calvin, we definitely have made that commitment with 1,500 job opportunities. That can vary. Students are given a portal into a software that lists all of the job opportunities that are available on campus. I have 2 student workers in my office. And so if I have a position, that would be posted on that system. It's called Job Share. And I don't think that you can access it unless you are a student or had been admitted at Calvin, but it does give a good resource for the students to identify what opportunities are available on campus. Now, this is also an opportunity that a student may have to work for the academic major that they are enrolled in, which is another great opportunity for avenues of research. So it really varies from the dining hall to an office to building assistants, to academic majors, to our conference center, our hotel. There is all kinds of job opportunities, and Calvin has made a commitment to make sure that the international students have that opportunity on campus. Would test scores be optional or mandatory? Sure. So at Calvin, for fall 2020, we are going to test optional, but you do need to look at the text that you find on the application around that and see if it would be wise for you to submit a test score or not in regards to scholarship. Now, it won't stop you from receiving a scholarship. I want to clarify that. It won't stop you, but it may help you with perhaps the flexibility of perhaps asking for an appeal if you have a test score. So that's what I just want you to be mindful of as you're looking at the verbiage in the applications of the schools that you're applying for. What happens if I don't submit it, right? What's the benefit if I do? Can I get an IELTS waiver? Right, so we didn't even talk about an English test, right? So Calvin does require a TOEFL or IELTS, or we also are working with Duolingo now if you have not attended an international school. So the question is, can I get an IELTS waiver as I am already an IB student? So an IB student does not necessarily waive you from an English test. However, if you've taken the SAT or ACT, that could possibly waive you, but we are going to test optional. So this is something that you should definitely ask an admissions counselor. It's hard for me to answer this right now because I don't know what your grades are. So it would definitely be based upon the grades that you have achieved and whether or not we would possibly waive that test. So that's a good learning moment on that too. You should always be reaching out to your admission counselor with additional questions that you may have in regards to testing.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Ms. Tara Brown, for this wonderful session. I think the information you provided on financial aid, scholarships, the terminology, the do's and don'ts, when to apply, and what to look out for has been nothing but comprehensive. And I'd like to thank you once again for your kind time and support, because I know it's very early in the morning out there in the States. So thank you so much for joining all the 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you all for joining me. I hope you found it helpful. Please reach out to me if you have any further questions, if I can assist. And I hope that you all have a good evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Tara Brown. And to students, parents, and counselors, as we mentioned in our outreach campaign email, and of course, I would like to mention here once again, the session is recorded and will be shared with your high school guidance counselors. So if you'd like to view it again, please contact the high school counselors. We'll also be sharing Ms. Tara Brown's email address, so you guys may take the conversations forward, which we really hope happen way past after this session and webinars over and for months to come. And counselors, as I mentioned to you, if there are other students who have not been able to attend this session due to scheduling constraints, kindly feel free to share this link with them as well. Please do share it with all your student body as well, so that they can not only learn more about financial aid, but also about Calvin University as they begin their process to apply to the US and see if it be a good fit. And of course, then be in touch with Ms. Tara Brown. Having said that, I think it's a wrap for the day. Thank you so much once again, Ms. Sarah. We truly appreciate your kind time and support. Wish you a wonderful day. Please take care, stay safe, and look forward to being in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.